Level 10 Leaders is the leadership podcast for CEOs and senior leaders focused on scaling their business. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. Every episode delivers field-tested tactics, practical tools, and real stories from top founders. If you're obsessed with business growth, execution, and building a leadership team that performs without you in the room, this is your show. Dr. Mike, in the podcast hot seat again. Welcome along to Level 10 Leaders.
Thank you, Ryan. It's just a joy to be here.
Firstly, congratulations. You've been published in Forbes magazine, which is no small feat. They are very, very strict on who they allow to publish, and I know you had to work hard on getting an article together that would meet their criteria. So firstly, congratulations on that, mate. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that might be my first article in a major publication. So, and having established a bit of a relationship, I'm hopeful that I'm going to get some more place there. It was a very helpful process once they accepted the principle of it. The editor was really good. Actually, I went in with a kind of let's be factual and kind of based on the research, this and this, which is more the HBR style. And they were kind of going, actually, we prefer things to come from people's reflections. Oh, wow, you're asking. You want me to reflect on my personal experience over 25 years? How do you think you're going to stop me? So it was really good, actually, because it did give me an opportunity to play into that space that I enjoy, which is, a curiosity about all the people that we've worked with, all the businesses we've worked with over the years. And if I include my time as a consultant, sort of 10 years as partner at Ernst & Young Consulting, and then 20 plus years doing this with you, 23 years, I think we've been doing this nearly. That's actually a body of knowledge and about what works and what doesn't work. And, at various times going, I don't understand why this is not working. What is it that will work better? So that endless curiosity about how businesses achieve to their potential is probably the biggest driver that I've had in my professional career. It is about, and of course, organizations are just people doing processes. So really it's a question about how do people do their best? That's it.
Indeed.
How do people do their best?
And a very appropriate topic, the quest for consistency. And we will, of course, make sure we put the link to the Forbes article in the podcast show notes so people can have a read. But I love the subtitle, which is Innovation is sexy, consistency is boring and effective.
Yeah. I wanted to, they changed the heading in the edit process. And I think my heading was like that. The heading is why consistency can outpace innovation in the long term, which is kind of, my one was consistency beats strategy every time. No, consistency beats innovation every time. And it was a bit provocative for them, but it's true in the long run. You can have brilliance, but if you don't have the consistency of execution, you don't have anything. You've just got a great idea. Innovation is a wonderful thing to start with, but there are lots of brilliant products and businesses and ideas that through a lack of execution never rise anywhere. Whereas the businesses that make it work, forget the unicorns because they tell us nothing. It's what we call it, business porn, right? It's got about as much relationship to life and business as porn does to real life relationships. So, but for the businesses that succeed over the long term and sustainably, the boring piece of execution is one of the 3 or 4 most important things. Consistency, they call it flawless execution, but at the bottom of that is consistency.
Indeed. And I love this that's in the opening paragraph, which is the best companies didn't try to delight their customers. They delivered on 100% of their promises 100% of the time. Tell us about your kind of insider on that.
Oh, that was marvelous. I thought, wow, that's it. That is exactly right. Forget all your delight the customer, surprise and delight. Forget it. It's bollocks. There was a great line on one of the British comedy shows I worked at. You got I was watching the other night. Got mansplaining. Well, there's another one called testiculation, which is when men talk bollocks. And
sure, that never happens.
Never happens. So so there's a lot of testiculation about. No, I won't say that. There's a lot of hype around delighting the customer, surprise and delight the customer. It's in the canvas, the customer value proposition canvas. I don't know if you remember it, but we ran this session with our business owners years ago, and these four characteristics, and this came up that actually flawless execution is about just that, 100% of the promise, 100% of the time. And there was like this collective groan of like, that's really hard, because sometimes your people will do too much. You'll overservice. And you don't actually know necessarily whether you're kind of lined up with the promise. You might be overservicing. If you're doing 105% of the promise 100% of the time, you're doing dough because fulfillment costs money. And if you're doing 95%, 100% of the time, you're going to need a lot more new customers because you're going to kind of lose them. You're just going to frustrate them. 100% of the time, oh man. And what have you got to do to achieve that? If you work back from that outcome, is that you've got to have consistency of process. And this is why people groaned, because particularly in small to mid-sized businesses, that's really hard. The number of companies that I've sat on, and you have too, where we would talk about the fact that they had the template, they had the SOP, they had the operating procedure, they had the kind of checklist, but they didn't do it. They went off-piste. They didn't comply. They didn't adhere to the system. And what they ended up handing over to the next part of the process was a mess. And that mess just got compounded until it got to the end. And you go, well, that's crap. Start again. And I heard the chief executive of Boeing, in between getting a grilling for his obscene salary, I think my Senator Tom Cotton was just saying, you come here and you grizzle about the fact that your real problem is that your people don't comply with what they should do. They don't adhere to process and policy. And he had some other suggestions about what might be wrong with somebody getting $33 million. But even the chief executive of Boeing struggles with people adhering to the agreed processes. That's what we mean by consistency. The fact that people just, I don't know, they did it the right way yesterday. They could do it again today. But they don't know why.
The other challenge that organizations, or the trap that they fall into, is becoming the hero firefighters. So they continually run around rescuing bad customer situations, going, we'll make this better, we'll fix that, we'll try and surprise and delight them on the next thing. And again, absolutely terrible, no consistency, burning cash and margin left, right, and center. But people can actually fall into the trap of like, that feels really good because I just rescued this customer. Like, it's a what I guess it's the old ambulance at the bottom of the cliff scenario. Is like, let's just stop jumping off the cliff. Let's get a process that stops that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's build a fence up there and just be so boringly consistent that there are no customer heroics. In fact, one of the kind of the markers, if you like, of a well-performing organization is that there are no customer heroes, not required. And if you remember our good friend Bob, we would talk about this in this context of what we're trying to do here is produce a business that makes boringly consistent profits. And that's exactly right. And it's good to put boring and consistent and profits together, because that's how you get boringly consistent profits, as exactly how the business works. And when it all works as it should, it will spit out this amount of profit. That's what we call a really good business. Really saleable, really valuable, really productive. And yet achieving that, and leave aside, we're really talking about the internal world of the organization. We're not talking about shocks in the market. We're not talking about wars or kind of tariffs or changes in policy. We're talking really about operational excellence, the fulfillment piece, the things that are under your control, being able to do them 100% consistently 100% of the time. That's the trick.
So we can all probably agree that sounds good, unless you're like, oh, I'm only a hypergrowth and it's got to be 100x every year. But for most of us running businesses, we're trying to achieve something more sustainable and achievable. What are the vital few things we can actually do to bring this into our businesses?
I was really interested in that because, we're big fans of the 80-20. We know that a small number of activities generate disproportionate amount of value, 80-20. Within that, there's an even smaller number of things that will, that hold. So it's not 80-20, it's like 220, for example, or 230, whatever. So there are two or three things that form the basis, and then you can kind of, diminishes after that. So there's a school of thought that talks about the vital few, the critical few. We call it the essentials. And I'm interested in the idea that there are, and I've done some research, I think there are probably 4 or 5 critical things that most organizations, most managers, most people, most organizations know that they should do in one form or another every single day or every week. I don't know, the frequency might vary, but there are some things that we know, like, for our listeners right now, what are the 3 things that if I did every single day religiously, my results would improve? And typically, so for in retail, for example, it might be I should range the product. I should make sure that our new product is on best display. I should fulfill my quotes, get my quotes back within 6 hours. I should have a huddle with my team once a day. Now there are variations of the kind of the 5 evergreen essentials, if you like. In my role, I should be, part of what we're doing is capital raising. So part of what every day, I should be reaching out to a potential investor. Every day, I should be following up on a proposal that we've got out in the market. Every day, I should be, what's my next one?
In your role as our chief product officer, you've always got to have a piece that's like, what am I doing to evolve and improve the product as well?
Yeah, but you know how I do that. I mean, that's just fun. That's just
but that's okay. The things that you do consistently and brilliantly every day don't have to be drudgery.
Yeah. I guess that's fair. So add to that one piece of think time. So if I did those 3 things every day, we'd move.
Mike, how do you think about balancing like the 3 things you've talked about there, what we'd refer to in our business as rocks or key goals or significant projects that we're working on to move things forward? Maybe slightly different from more a mid-level manager where they're like, yes, I'm getting some rocks that I have to complete every quarter, but I've also just got an operational job that I have to get done as well. Plus I'm trying to manage other people, and plus I'm trying to maybe do some development of myself and improve myself as well. How should people think about balancing or working on all 4 of those components?
Yeah. That's a great question. And as you know, in our AMOS, in our Active Manager Operating System, that we're developing, we're very much driving off the daily execution built around the 3 things to do today. We've tended to say, you're going to have a mix. Some of those are going to be rocks, and they are the things that contribute to the strategic initiatives, the strategic plan, that you're going to do something today, a small step that is going to take you closer to your quarterly objective. And they're our rocks. And that still makes sense. That's what we build into our development program as being, what you should do every day. I think for me, the second bit is probably redefining what we've tended to mean as core, which we've sort of said as business as usual. Actually, I think they are those core essentials around the things that we should do every day that are going to make the biggest difference. And so for me, I'm very much, at the end of the business where I do have to be working on our 3 rocks, and our 3 rocks happen to be, kind of revenue related, distribution related, and product related. Well, that's my stuff. But I would, if I wasn't doing that, I'd be thinking about those core essential things, those 3 things, and maybe I'm only going to do one of them today, but every single day doing one of my essentials. And then because managers exist to do basically 2 things: get things done and build people. So definitely part of the other thing to capture is, what are you going to do today to build your people? The trick that we're working on with Amos is that you can plan for some of that. You can have a one-on-one with somebody. Here is your agenda. Here's the prep for your agenda from our Dr. Mike AI coach, etc. There's another piece which we're using is, Dr. Mike is proactive. Dr. Mike pops up and says, hey, how did you go on with your people today? And you've got an opportunity to say, well, actually, I had an opportunity to have a coaching moment with Ryan, and I took it. Or I didn't. But a fundamental part of that kind of consistency is to be able to look back at what you've done and say, have I actually stayed in the lane? Have I actually done the things that I'm supposed to have done? Because look, it's a very human thing. We forget. I go, I've got my 3 things to do today. And then, I get carried away. Somebody gave me a little coaster once that said, tries hard but is easily distracted. Me. So I forget, how do I get that reminder to do those things? And then how do I get a picture of what I've done? It's a bit like, I see you're wearing an Aura and I've got a smart, not just a smart watch, but it's a hybrid, right? And, counts the steps and stuff like that. So it's a bit like that. We want to know how we're doing in regard to these commitments. We said 5,000 steps. I want to know how many steps I've taken. We said that we wanted to work on our strategic objectives, at least 1 a day. How am I doing? Have I actually made it happen or not?
Here's a quick break. If you're a CEO or senior leader scaling a growing business, listen up. Here's the truth. Most companies don't have a strategy problem, they have an execution problem. So here's a quick win. Take 2 minutes to complete the execution strength diagnostic. Get an instant report that shows you exactly where your execution is leaking. Take the diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. It's free, it's fast, and it'll show you the real gap between your strategy and what's actually happening day to day. Now let's get back to the podcast. So conceptually, this all makes sense, right?
Good.
But why? I think if we sat down with a room of business leaders, they would all nod and say, yes, that's exactly what I want. It's what I want my business to deliver every single day. Why is consistency so hard? Where does it collapse?
Yeah, I think it sort of collapses I think it's in the understanding of what those few are. But more than that, I think there's a lack of belief that you can do anything about it. When we've talked to COOs and CEOs and said to them, hey, do you kind of miss your quarterly targets regularly? And one of them said, of course, doesn't everyone? And I was talking to a really smart CEO, one of the smartest I know, and we were talking about it. And I said, why does it happen? He said, and he said the same thing. Well, yeah, of course we miss those targets. Everybody misses those targets. That's how it is. Oh, Mark, that's not like you. He's a very analytical, very thoughtful, smart guy. And he was saying, look, I could give you all the reasons. Well, I actually don't know why. I don't know why. I think it's something to do with inertia. We didn't move fast enough. Maybe we weren't clear enough about the behaviors. And I think it's that. I think it's understanding, translating a strategic plan all the way down an organization to a unit, to a manager, a team, a frontline manager. These are the things that you need to do in order to make your contribution back up the line. And if everybody does those, if we've got true cohesion and alignment, everybody doing those will result in that number. And if we're clear about the essential few, that these are the things you must do, or make sure that your people do every day, if we all do those. But that's quite hard work. And there's more, typically what the exec does is they tracking along 2 months into the quarter, or on track, everything's green. We've got the dashboard green, 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 green. Then, or 2 weeks before, off track. Ouch. And then boom, 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 boom. And they all fall over. It's too late. They had no idea, they had no lead indicators to what was going to happen because they didn't understand the behaviors required to achieve those things. So they're flying blind. And I think that feeling of flying blind gets to the end of the quarter and they go, missed again. So that it's like they discount it. There's a fatalism and a resignation to it. So instead of resolving this, they resign themselves. So I think the willingness to do the work around the vital few, that's what marks out the successful operators from the less predictably successful.
Like I was talking to a CEO a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, Ryan, we've got more people, more systems, more software, more processes than we've ever had, and we still just can't get as much out the door as we used to. And he reflected that exact scenario. He said, my quarterly goals with my leadership team are always on track for the first 11 weeks of the quarter, and then in week 12, they're not. And he's like,
Then
it's
and
this
they're
like
not.
consistent pattern. And my observation is that whirlwinds happen in business. Stuff happens every single day. You plan your morning and something happens and takes you off. But it's if you don't look at those key goals that you have to do every single morning and go, how am I going to make some progress on that? We all fall into the trap of like, oh, well, it's not due until the end of the quarter, so I'll just let the whirlwind take over. I'll move into reactive mode. I'll just be very reactionary, deal with things.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I get to the last week and I'm like, oh my God, this rock was huge. This is going to take like 100 hours of effort to get across the
Yeah.
line. I sure as hell
Yeah.
can't do that in the last week. So
Yeah.
the analogy I use often, which is you can't go to the gym once a year and be fit for the whole year. You have to go and do your reps every single day. And it's the same thing in business. We've got to do our reps on the things that matter every single day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the whole day. It might be like the 15 minutes of progress today
Right.
where we shape something up, get someone else to help us progress it. And if we just do those reps every single day with focus and intent, the cumulative effect of that over time is huge. And
Yes.
that's huge for an individual, let alone if you start getting your entire organization doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We one of the things we often say, isn't it? Execution is a daily habit, and really what we're developing in our own thinking about our product is the habit of execution. How do we do that? And there are three components to this that if you don't have them, you will drift off your habit. And the first of those is upskilling. It's not enough just to get generic advice from ChatGPT about what to do here. You actually need to have gone through the process of learning and internalizing how to be a better manager, because that's what's going to create the time for you to do these things. See, the reason people don't do their stuff is because they're busy. It's the whirlwind. The only way you free yourself from the whirlwind is by developing the awareness, the self-awareness about when you're in that whirlwind, developing the self-awareness about only doing what only you can do, learning how to delegate, learning how to be really clear in your communications to people so that there is no kind of misunderstanding and rework. So, there's a whole capability piece that just takes time. And then there's a piece around maintaining momentum, which is, in that planning and today, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Most momentum suffers when people hit an obstacle and they go, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Or they've got an ongoing or a chronic issue that they're not dealing with and it's affecting performance. So then you need to have in the moment, creating the momentum that gets them past that problem, solves the problem. And that's where the AI coach piece is so important. But the last piece is really all about the alignment between what it is you say you're going to do and what you actually do, and being able to see that. And this is the execution piece. All of those things provide the data for you to know, are you actually doing what you said you were going to do, or you just can't account for where your days have gone? Even more importantly is your manager being able to see that, and the exec being able to see across the organization, hey, here's our here's our consistency rating. Here's how much effort is going into achieving those strategic objectives. Here's how much effort measured by, kind of objective activities recorded is going into the core. Here's what's going into building people. And looking at that and saying, wow, so some teams are going great guns, other teams are really languishing. Right, we need to work on what's going on in the. So the ability to course correct on this stuff and bring everybody up to the same standard is how organizations go faster and go further.
Can I outsource execution to AI entirely?
Yeah, not so far. It does quite a lot though, doesn't it? Operates in Chrome, or I've had it do some wonderful things. Operates in Outlook. No, you've still got it. And actually, it doesn't work like that, because in the end, why we still have people there is judgment called for. And AI, even though It's amazing in terms of its ability to contextualize. You don't know what it doesn't know. You don't know what it hasn't thought of in its contextualizing. I spend a lot of time with AI. Most of my day now is spent on AI. And what that is doing the work, reviewing what it's done, making judgments from my own experience about what it's got right and what it's gone wrong, and iterating. I will do 14 or 15 versions of something before and sometimes I'll go, you know what? That doesn't work. We need to turn that around and go that way. I've already done 3 iterations. So we still, and when it comes to people, which is the fundamental thing, you cannot outsource managing people to AI. It is not a sentient being. And even when it is, it won't be. And that's why there's such a difference that we all experience between, you and I, when we're online, it's good, it's fine. When we're in person together, man, we make things happen, don't we?
Sure thing.
So, our online experience is still 80% of our truly human experience.
So as organizations think about how they navigate AI and the world that's evolving around them, how can they think about what's going to be the real competitive advantage that they can lean into?
I think they absolutely still need to understand those essentials, those few things that are going to make the difference if they're done consistently every day. And getting to that 100% of the promise. So 100% of the process, 100% of the time, 100% of the promise to the customer or the client, 100% of the time. That just have in mind achieving that 100%, 100%. That's 100% consistency. And that's not kind of bureaucratic. That's constantly looking for different ways of doing things. That's fine. That's cool. Very important. But you're in pursuit of that joinery factory that just made it up every day. On the floor to exec is about 100% consistency. Doing what you say you'll do. Sounds so simple. All the organizations need to do is do what they say they'll do. And the bit that makes that change happen, I was going to say before I got off onto a slight tangent, is the importance of reinforcement. It's not just being able to see that, to be reminded about what you're going to do. It's being reinforced by that in your one-on-one with your boss. It's being reinforced by your peers in terms of how they're going, and being reinforced by the feedback, being able to see the results of operating like that consistently. Because that's how behaviour change gets locked into habit, is reinforcement.
Indeed. So what would be a couple of simple steps people could take to close their execution gap?
Well, the obvious first one is to do our execution strength diagnostic, Ryan, I would have thought.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Mike. There was an entirely planned leading question and you answered it very well.
Thank you. Thank heavens. I think they should start there. Absolutely start there. Because it all starts with a willingness to confront the fact that how good are we at this stuff? If you simply are resigned to the fact that you never hit your targets, then, you don't care. You just set targets that are too high. You accept that you're only going to shoot for the moon, land on, I don't know, Earth, land in the ocean, whatever. All good. But if you're serious about improving it, you would then go, okay, how do I find out what I need to do to reduce this inconsistency? How do I improve my execution strength? And the piece I'm working on at the moment, which I'm very, very excited about, is doing essentially a calculator customized to your industry. We have a conversation with you about your industry, some of the characteristics, because not all industries are the same in terms of what matters most, and then setting up a tool for as you come in, to have a conversation at your senior team and calculate what's the impact of the various kind of areas where you're slipping, and what does an improvement agenda look like. And once you've done that, I think you'll then be prepared to start the work. But the bit I'm really excited about is how this tool quantifies your improvement opportunity. I think it's there, right? If businesses want to improve their execution, we can show you. You've just got to be prepared to do the work.
Yeah. And comes back to the boringly predictable effort involved. And our observation is very few organizations require a transformation project, which
Oh,
seems to have been the big, chat for the last decade. We're transforming
yeah,
this, we're transforming that, we're getting consultants in, we're doing all of that. It's like, no,
yeah,
no, just 1% better every day. Get these habits working. They make a huge difference. You need some tools and systems around that to make it possible to help lead that behavior change for your people in your organization. But it doesn't
yeah,
have to be some big transformation project that you pull everybody off their core work for, 6 months to try and make a difference. It's like get in the gym and start doing the reps. And if you've got guidance on what the best reps to do, you'll do well.
and again, you go back to that Pareto 80/20. My sense is that without too much science to it, and because it's very hard to tell, but I think we can recover 10% of a manager's time, like half a day a week, by through our program and our practices. Managers can recover half a day a week, which they can then use to manage better. I think when they do that, they will get a 10% lift in their team's performance. And if you take that 10% lift across enough of your organization, that amounts to a substantial bridge between your strategic plan and its objectives and what you actually achieve. So I think the number is 10%. I think we could, get a 10% improvement in management performance and easily a 10% improvement in productivity. And that's without a single new customer. I reckon we could make 10% more operating profit before we have a new customer walk in the door.
And we're starting to see the data to support that, which is very, very exciting. So no new customers, no new cost,
Yeah.
and a 10% lift in net
Yeah.
profit margin.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Use the resources you've got more effectively, and
That's it.
great things will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who's sitting there in the audience thinking, oh no, we couldn't be 10% better? Like to meet you, like to invest in you.
We've now had hundreds of people do the execution strength diagnostic.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the questions we ask is, what would be the impact to your organization if you got an improvement in management performance? And it's a 10-point scale, and we're currently averaging 8.9 on the 10-point scale of people
Yeah.
that know that if they could improve that effectiveness, the impact it would have to their organization. So that's pretty compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's there. It's sitting there. It beggars belief why more people aren't kind of really uptight about it. But I think it's just this attitude of, well, it's gonna, who does? Well, maybe you should.
I think it's that. I think there's some complacency. That's always how it's been, so that's how it's always going to
Yeah,
be. So that's one thing.
yeah,
I think people are always chasing some golden goose. They're like, oh, well, if we just get the next CRM system, or if we just get that next hire, or if we just get the next transformation project, it's going to be the thing. Oh, maybe we'll just redo the strategy document. That's it. We'll just redo the strategy document. That'll be the thing that fixes it. It's like there's
put
nothing
more
wrong with your
posters.
strategy right now.
Yeah, yeah. Put more posters on the wall. I tell you what, we'll just cut staff. There's another way of doing it. We'll just cut staff. Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff that people just don't want to think about because it's really quite hard work. It's not like innovation. It's not sexy and exciting and kind of, oh, this is going to be the pixie dust. It's the hard work of making sure people are doing the job they're meant to do every single day. Yeah, that sounds boring, but effective.
Very. And I think most people find it hard work because they don't know where to start. They don't know how to implement the system that changes that execution
Yeah,
behavior. So I think that
yeah,
it's like most things in life, it's really hard until you know how. Once you know how, you're like, I mean, we've seen this in our customers. Like once they know how, they're like, wow, this is
yeah.
creating incredible outcomes. Yes, it was a little bit challenging in the beginning, but now it's, as you call it, a habit. It's the execution habit. And now we've got our whole organization doing it every day, and the change is miraculous.
And actually, what I find in the kind of innovation space, to call it that, is, and I guess I'm very comfortable with it because I'm a sort of a lifelong learner, but I start out and I think, well, how am I going to do that? I know, I'll start. I'll just start. And I'm not different. I'm not that smart. There's most of us, the way we work out how to do something is say, right, I'm going to spend the next hour working on this. Goodness me, I've come up with how to do it. So, a lot of that kind of teaching, we're perfectly capable. We just don't give ourselves the time or the space to think about how we might do it.
And you also don't want to reinvent the wheel. So yes, we can figure out how to do anything, and now our information is ubiquitous, so we can get it anywhere we like. But you also don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I could figure out how to do plumbing in my house, but I'm much better to just hire a plumber who already has the expertise to do it. They'll come in, they'll do it faster, they'll do it with less waste. The total cost of the project will be less than if I did it myself. It's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with building execution in your business. You're like, hey, yeah, you could spend, how many years have we spent working on this? 20? You could go and spend 20 years trying to get perfect at understanding how execution works, or you could work with us, get a much better result.
Yeah. That's right. It's definitely kind of standing on the shoulders of giants. I guess my point is the willingness to, before you get to the point of outsourcing, and you're 100% right, of course you should hire us, to sit down and think about the problem. We can't do that for you. You have to be the one that says, I refuse to accept that we are consistently missing our operational excellence targets by 20% every year. I'm now going to sit down and work out what's involved. Why is that? And I'm going to talk to the senior team about why is that? And again, as I'm saying, we're currently developing this tool which will help you have that conversation and identify where you should be putting your effort. And then talk about, well, okay, how do I do that? That's another question. That's another conversation to have. But I think the opportunities are enormous.
Mike, thanks for your insights today. We will make sure we put in the show notes links to your Forbes article and also our execution strength diagnostic, because people can use that as their first step for assessing where they are currently. Love those insights, and the depth of your understanding around this literally has been built over a career of thinking about it. So it's very rich, and thank you for sharing that with us today.
My great pleasure as always, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Level 10 Leaders. If today's episode hit home, here's one action to take right now. Do the execution strength diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. It's fast, free, and will show you exactly where your execution is leaking. Hit subscribe, share this with one person who needs to break through the ceiling and crush their growth goals. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll show you exactly how to level up to level 10.